can't make it. I was one of the fortunate ones.
From the mean streets of Philadelphia to the ring-hardened mystique of the Philadelphia fighter, that's Bernard Hopkins' path to the IBF Middleweight Championship. And he has left all his misfortune behind. His punishing style has even had opponents' cornermen throwing in the towel as Hopkins pursues even more middleweight glory. Seeking his own fortune is unbeaten Glen Johnson of Jamaica with 22 KOs in 32 wins. It's Johnson and Hopkins for the IBF Middleweight Championship today on the show.
He's undefeated. He has a better record than mine on paper, but I also know that he hasn't been in there with a guy like Bernard Hopkins, and I know that he hasn't fought a world champion type of status ever in his life. So that got to play a big factor in his mind. I mean, he's human. And, I mean, I had an opportunity to fight Roy Jones for a vacant title in '93. I know how I felt. I believe he's under the same, if not more, pressure.
There is Bernard Hopkins, the IBF middleweight champion, making his way into the ring. Glen Johnson with an impressive record, obviously 32-0, hard to improve on that, 22 KOs. I guess, though, we have to look at the caliber of opposition.
Glen Johnson is stepping way up in class, Tim, but he's awkwardly cute, very hard to hit, and nobody's been able to figure him out yet.
Glen Johnson comes into this fight with a lot of confidence. We asked him how he expects to beat Bernard Hopkins and win the crown.
Bernard Hopkins is a strong fighter. He's a very good offensive fighter. You know, he's a solid fighter, so basically what I do, I have to keep him off his game plan, keep him, touch him and move, and turn him around, keep turning him. So it's going to be an interesting fight.
Well, you can see the confidence there of Glen Johnson. He's undefeated. He'll try to lift the IBF middleweight crown when CBS... Hopkins, now 31 years of age, came in at exactly at the 160-pound limit. And Johnson, 28 years old, came in at 159 3/4. And you can see the physical matchup just about the same there. Slight height advantage to Hopkins. IBF rules, there is no standing 8 count, and the count continues after the bell after every round. Both the doctor and the referee can stop the fight if that becomes required, and there is no 3 knockdown rule in effect. Let's go to our ring announcer for the introduction of the fighters, Thomas Triber.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Fantasy Springs Casino right here in Indio, California, America presents, and the undefeated king of beers, Budweiser, proudly present to you professional fight action, which means it's fight time in Indio. This bout is scheduled for 12 rounds, and it is for the IBF middleweight title. It is sanctioned by the California State Athletic Commission, Chairman Willie Buchanan, Vice Chairman Ernie Weiner. In attendance representing the IBF is the supervisor, Jim Rondo. The judges assigned are Fritz Werner, John Shorley, and Larry Razadia. When the bell rings, the referee in charge of the action will be Pat Russell. Introducing to you first the challenger, fighting out of the red corner. He's wearing purple trunks with black trim and weighed in at 159 3/4 pounds. Hailing from Miami, Florida, he has an unblemished record of 32 wins, no losses, with 22 wins coming by way of knockout. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Glen Johnson.
All right.
And his opponent, fighting directly across from him out of the blue corner. This afternoon, he's wearing gold trunks with black trim and weighed in at 160 pounds. Hailing from the great fighting city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, he has a professional record of 31 wins, just 2 setbacks, 1 draw, with 24 wins coming by way of knockout. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the current IBF middleweight champion of the world, Bernard Middleweight King Executioner Hopkins. Once again, your referee in charge, Pat Russell, now to give the instructions.
Okay, it's clear the ring except for 1 second the fighter. 1 second the fighter, clear the ring. Everybody else out, please. Okay, gentlemen, here's that line right here. Everybody see that? Everybody see that? Championship of the world, 12 rounds, touch your gloves, come out at the bell. Good luck to both of you.
Final instructions from the referee, Pat Russell, and will be underway, scheduled for 12. Bernard Hopkins defending his IBF middleweight title against Glen Johnson. Hopkins in his 8th title fight, 1993. His first opportunity was against Roy Jones, who has since moved up in weight. It was for the IBF crown. He lost over 12 to Roy Jones, and then had a draw against Segundo Mercado in 1994 in his second title try for the IBF championship, and then stopped Mercado in 1995 with a 7th-round knockout, and has defended it successfully 4 times since. Hopkins in gold, Glen Johnson in the purple trunks with black trim. Watching Johnson in some previous fights, difficult guy to find, Gil. He's very good defensively. He's kind of a safety-first fighter, but he can punch, as his 22 KOs would indicate.
Very, very cute guy, Tim. He's the kind of guy you don't want to take any chances with, because, as you mentioned, he can nail you coming in. And Hopkins came out quickly, just the way he told us he was going to. Wants to get rid of this guy early. But again, that may be a formidable task.
Hopkins, an excellent mechanic, well-schooled fighter. We call him a complete fighter. He does have some power, although it's more often that he kind of wears you down because he makes each punch count. And they are heavy punches.
Big right hand.
Yes, he caught
Right on the punch.
leading in.
And Johnson took the punch, to his credit.
Right on the chin.
And Johnson, they said, how does he expect to win the fight? He says, easy. I have to hit him more than he hits me. Pretty simple explanation.
That's right. That's the theory and the way boxing should be scored. Hopkins gets in close. He will make every punch count. He won't just wait on you. He'll bang something somewhere. You saw some body shots in the last exchange.
And he throws some beautiful straight right hands, Tim. They're quick and they're accurate.
A minute to go in the first round, scheduled for 12. Championship action on the CBS Sports Show. Hopkins and Johnson.
Little low blow by Johnson, excuse me. Won by Pat Russell.
Glen Johnson suffered a cut in his last 2 fights against Sam Garr, a tough battle. He won over 10 rounds against a guy who could punch some, was undefeated at the time. And Dave Hamilton, he stopped in 2 rounds, but he cut in both of those fights. Has recovered. They were both from headbutts and punches. Final seconds of round number 1. Watching the champion of the IBF middleweight division, Bernard Hopkins in gold, Glen Johnson in purple with black trim from Miami, Florida. Originally from Jamaica, been living in Florida since the age of 14. Trained by Pat Burns. Bernard Hopkins has Bowie Fisher, his trainer, in his corner. Last outing, Hopkins, in defense of his title, stopped John Jackson in 7, April 19th of this year. Johnson's last outing, a 2nd-round knockout of Dave Hamilton in January.
Good uppercut by Hopkins. Again, right on the button. It didn't seem to faze Johnson at all.
28-year-old Johnson from Clarendon, Jamaica, now living in Miami, as we said. 3-time Florida Golden Glove champion.
Johnson is going to have to nail Hopkins with a couple of good punches, because Hopkins is really taking chances, really throwing bombs, and Johnson just isn't countering enough at the time, right now.
Interesting thing about these two fighters, they started as light heavyweights, Gil. It's often the case that fighters move up in weight. These two guys actually started at 175. Indeed, Johnson, his first fight was at 195 pounds when he turned pro. Start to box until he was 20 years old. That is a good left hand from Hopkins.
That is a very interesting point, and again, you can see Hopkins, when he has the guy hurt, really trying to get him out of there.
Pouring it on, but good defense by Johnson. He covers up well with his hands up high. Hopkins trying to find openings, pounding away. Johnson has not thrown a punch back, but he still has his legs well under.
That's what he's going to have to do. He's going to have to gain Hopkins' respect to stay in this fight.
Round number 2. Johnson gathered himself there with some good defense.
But he's going to have to show a little offense, Tim. He weathered the storm, but he has to get Hopkins' respect.
Johnson fired a low blow there that referee didn't see.
Take a step out. Let me untangle. I got it. Let's go.
So far, Johnson's left hook has been his best punch. Left hook to the body, not to the head.
Hopkins looking very relaxed here, throwing punches and bunches. Now Johnson grabs on here.
That's an indication that he's being hurt by those punches, Tim.
And a little weary from the assault. Under 30 seconds we go in round 2.
There, Johnson fired a left hook back to the chin.
Free up those hands. Free them up.
Johnson undefeated, 32-0 with 22 KOs, but hasn't been in against the same type of opposition as the champion Hopkins. Final seconds, round 2.
To my mind, definite disqualification.
Roy Jones Jr., Montel Griffin. This time, both fighters say enough is enough. It's the rematch. Jones lost his title. Griffin still undefeated. Live on pay-per-view from Foxwoods Casino. Call now to order. Enough is enough. Brought to you by Budweiser, the undisputed king of beers. This Bud's for you.
Round number 3, scheduled for 12, the IBF World Middleweight Championship. The champion in gold is Bernard Hopkins from Philadelphia. The challenger is Glen Johnson from Miami. Jamaican-born.
And Tim, in Johnson's corner, they said it's going to be tough for another round or 2, and then you're going to be able to take over. I don't know whether they've scouted Hopkins and feel that he gets tired. But again, Hopkins is using a lot of energy, throwing a lot of punches.
Hopkins with wins over the likes of Ralph Moncrief, Dennis Milton, Segundo Mercado, John Jackson, Joe Lipsy. Who said Glen Johnson has not been in against a lot of the big names in the middleweight division. 25-5 as an amateur, 3-time Florida Golden Glove champion.
There you go, Glenn. Put the light behind it.
Hopkins, who idolizes Marvin.
Here's that uppercut, Tim.
And there's a bang to the body from Hopkins.
Again, Hopkins takes a chance when he throws that uppercut. When you throw that punch, you're wide open. But so far, Johnson has not taken advantage of it. It's a very dangerous punch.
Two good body shots, but one of them low, and he gets a warning from Pat Russell, does Hopkins. Hopkins, just as past May, is in court, shaking himself loose from his promoter, Butch Lewis, over a contract dispute. Happy man since doing so. Hasn't been real active as a result of that ongoing dispute up until May.
Again, now Johnson is jabbing, but he's jabbing at the air, Tim. You have to hit something when you throw that left jab. That's what he's going to have to do to stop Hopkins. He's going to have to hit him with something. See you drag back with that jab. There it is again. Now they're yelling in the corner that he has to touch Hopkins with the jab. It's exactly what he hasn't been doing.
Under a minute to go in round number 3. Hopkins has shown every punch in the book, as you said, he's a complete fighter.
But again, there's that uppercut on the inside, Tim. That's very dangerous. Get nailed coming in with that punch, you're gone.
Johnson finally lands with a left, backing up Hopkins momentarily for the first time in the fight. And he lands a left hook lead. That shook Johnson. Hopkins has jabbed with his lead, has shown a left hook lead, a right hand lead.
Here's that uppercut again by Hopkins.
And they even led with that uppercut. Final seconds of round number 3. Round number 4 of the scheduled 12-round middleweight championship fight for the IBF crown. The champion in gold is Bernard Hopkins. The challenger is Glen Johnson from Miami, originally from Jamaica.
And in Johnson's corner, they mentioned that he's being short on his jab. He's going to have to bury the jab. And I think that's very good advice because he has been too timid with that jab.
According to the trainer, he lands Hopkins, an overhand right. Hopkins pulled away, reducing the impact, and now Hopkins fires back, lands a left to the ear. That shook Johnson. He got his balance back right away.
I think he was off balance, Tim.
Hopkins trying to pour it on here, and again, that peekaboo style.
Good left hooks to the body by Johnson, and a good right hand to the head by Hopkins. Now Johnson's becoming more aggressive.
Well, that's what his corner wanted from him, starting with his jab. His trainer, Pat Burns, saying, you know, you look like you're afraid of him. You're not getting that jab to make contact. Touch him with it. Again, Hopkins firing that right uppercut lead.
Hopkins has very accurate hands, Tim. Puts his punches together well.
Step out. One step. Get back,
Good defense.
He's been forcing the fight through the first 3 rounds. We have him up. He's up at this point in our card. Knocked down so far. Good combination by Hopkins. 2 quick hands landed.
But again, Johnson now keeps burying that left hook underneath. That could have an effect if this fight goes any distance.
2 good left hands to the body. Hopkins backs him up with a combination.
There's the jab that Hopkins is throwing. That's what Johnson should be doing. He throws that jab so he's in the front and out the back. Good stiff jab by Hopkins. That sets up everything else.
He's been getting off first with all of his punches. Under a minute to go in round 4. Johnson has not led the pace in the fight at any point so far. He's been waiting to counter. There's the right-hand lead. Hopkins over the top, and then he comes back to the left to the body.
Fighting with a lot of confidence, Hopkins is, Tim. A lot of confidence.
Smiling here. Looking like he's enjoying it here in the 4th round. Under 30 seconds we go.
Showing every punch in the book. Every punch in the book.
Short with those. Johnson blocking them with his gloves. The last exchange, but again, Johnson not firing back. He's backing up. Hopkins keeps the pressure on. Hopkins cheering section. His wife Jeanette on the left, his mom Shirley on the right. And they're pleased with what they've seen so far through 4 rounds, and we've given every round to the champion. Johnson just not aggressive enough, and Hopkins hasn't let up his tempo right from the opening bell.
He's in his zone, Tim. He's in his zone. Good balance, puts his punches together. Just doing everything right now. And to Johnson's credit, he's hung in there. He's going to have to land a big punch now to really get back into this fight.
You described Hopkins as the best of the champions. And the others in the WBC, Keith Holmes, an American, and William Joppy of the U.S. is the WBA champion. The less regarded WBO, Lonnie Bradley, another American.
Time out. Go over here real quick. Tight up. You over there in that neutral corner. Real quick.
A loose lace on the boot of Glen Johnson. And the referee, Pat Russell, stopping time in order for that to be tightened up so he doesn't trip on it. We're back in action here in round number 5, scheduled for 12. Hopkins just keeps the pressure on.
Johnson is punching back, Tim, but to no effect whatsoever.
He's got to force the issue at some point because he's been letting Hopkins lead the entire fight.
And you can see him holding on the inside, Johnson.
Undefeated challenger Glen Johnson, 22 KOs and 32 wins, but he has that uppercut of Hopkins.
Johnson's going to have to get off first at some time during this fight. Right now, it's getting target practice for Hopkins. Look at that snappy jab of Hopkins. That's what I call a good left jab. That's once you do that, you can feint off the jab and set up anything else.
No reaching, no reaching.
Under a minute remaining in round number 5. Hopkins gets a warning for a low blow, but it was a good counter left to the body. He just fired it so quickly that it did wind up low, and he got a warning.
There you go, keep it out.
There's a couple of stiff jabs by Johnson. That's what he's going to have to do to stay in this fight.
Short, sharp right by Hopkins bothered Johnson. He's backed him into the Johnson corner. Johnson into that good peekaboo defensive style here against the assault from Hopkins, but he is backing up, and then there's an uppercut that wobbled him. Hopkins pours it on.
Talk about a guy being conditioned. And Hopkins is certainly spending a lot of energy, letting it all hang out.
Hopkins going all out here in the fifth, but Johnson makes it to the bell. And shakes his head at his corner like he's all right. They're both well-conditioned athletes, and Johnson has to be against this furious assault from the champion Hopkins. You're looking into the corner of the champion, Bernard Hopkins.
Look at the baby. The thing's fine. He's shortened his sock up a little bit inside. Give him a little ankle.
Back into that action in round 5.
All-out assault by Bernard Hopkins, Tim. There's that right hand, left hook. Right hand, another left hook. Uppercut, left hook. Right hand, left hook. What conditioning on this Hopkins. He's sitting down in the corner now, Tim. Fresh as a daisy. Seems that way anyhow.
Well, and for Johnson's part, excellent condition as well, or he'd be on the canvas by now.
I think just about anybody else would be. He must take a tremendous punch, and again, he's in excellent condition.
Through 5, the champion has had his way against the unbeaten challenger, Glen Johnson. There's Bernard Hopkins.
Doing good, Glenn. Fight like this. Let's go, Glenn. Let's go.
Johnson's slow leaving the corner.
Into round number 6. Hopkins, perhaps with a lot to prove here. National television exposure, still angry at his former promoter, Butch Lewis, and winning a contract dispute, or at least the ability to get out of his existing contract with Butch Lewis. Got out of it last May. Now with new management, new promotion. Fighters always like to prove to the guys that are gone that they made a mistake.
Johnson is starting to let that right hand go now, Tim. And again, if Bernard Hopkins gets a little too confident, he could walk right into one. And just what they said in the corner, let him walk into it. There's that dangerous uppercut again by Hopkins.
You mean it's dangerous both ways. It can do damage, but it leaves him open. Huh?
Absolutely. I'll never forget when Buster Douglas fought against the Vander Holyfield. Got knocked cold.
There you go. Do it. Step together. Double up with your step. Work your step. Work your foot. That's it. Straighten it out. Straighten it out. Bring the hook.
Now Bernard's mouth is starting to open up a little bit, because he did spend an awful lot of energy. Tremendous amount of energy.
He set a tremendous pace right from the opening bell. He came out as though he wanted to take Johnson out of the right of way. And he has kept trying through 5. We're in round 6.
There's a good left hook thrown by Johnson. Not landed, but he threw it with bad intentions.
Johnson looking to do some damage here and suddenly stops Hopkins in his tracks. We're in under a minute to go in the 6th. Johnson has been unable to do that so far.
Again, Johnson took a chance with that right hand, trying to throw it over the jab.
Step punching. Watch your head. Step out. There we go.
Hopkins a knockout.
Good right hand again by Hopkins, right on the chin.
He's a knockout puncher. He has 24 KOs in his 31 victories. But so far, even though he's dominated this fight, hasn't been able to make the stoppage against Glen Johnson. May wind up getting a little frustrated as this fight continues. Final seconds of round 6. We're at the Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California for the IBF Middleweight Championship. Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy watching Bernard Hopkins in gold, the champion, against Glen Johnson. We've given every round to the champion Hopkins. But two well-conditioned boxers. Johnson has taken a lot of punishment and is still standing there, trying to turn this fight around somehow, but Hopkins has not let up on his pace. He has been forcing the issue right from the opening bell.
Last round, though, Tim, was the first time that Hopkins showed signs of being a little weary, because again now he's fighting with his mouth wide open.
And backing up into a defensive position rather than forcing the issue. So let's see what happens here. Now we're into the 7th. Whether Johnson, who is obviously also in great shape, can somehow turn this around. He takes a right hand. That's got his attention. Hopkins. Johnson missing, and Hopkins, sensing he hurt Johnson, comes back with an inside combination.
Nice short punches on the inside by Hopkins.
He's resting a little bit more flat-footed here in the 7th. And Johnson step it up somehow. As Johnson elects to clinch.
There you go, that's good.
Again, Hopkins changing his style here. He's definitely resting some, flat-footed, letting Johnson come to him and looking to counter. This is completely different than what he's done through the first 6 rounds. And as you point out, Gil, it may be that he is finally starting to be a little weary after the pace he's set.
Don't reach. Come on. Yep, come on now. Make it work.
Johnson jumping in with a right hand has grazed the chin of Hopkins. No damage. Another minute to go in the 7th.
And Johnson now, his right eye is starting to close, Tim.
A little swelling around that right eye. And a low blow there. The referee didn't see it, but it was definitely a low blow. And you can see even Johnson knows he didn't mean to land it there, but he did. And so there'll be a time given here to Hopkins. He can have up to 5 minutes if he chooses to take it. Pat Russell, even though he didn't see the low blow, has acknowledged that it was one.
And Johnson tried to apologize to Hopkins while he was on the floor, tapped him on the back.
So Hopkins taking the time to get himself back together, and now he tells Pat Russell that he can go. There's the low blow. You can see Johnson was just, his head was down. He had no idea where that punch was going. It was on the target below the belt.
And you have to give Hopkins credit. He could have taken a lot more time. Just got hit with a right hand, Hopkins did.
Now that's got Hopkins back alive as he forces the issue again. And Johnson does the grabbing once more. He's just been unable to get any kind of consistent offense going. To keep Hopkins off him. Can't do it. So that's the end of round number 7. In the corner of the champion, Hopkins.
Take a deep breath. Take another one and listen. Okay, you're doing good. Listen to the coach. All right. I want to see you move a little more. One thing you haven't given me yet. That's the hook from the outside. I want to see the hook from the outside, right?
Louis Fisher is trainer, giving the champion instructions. And reminder that after the fight, check out CBS Sports Line for a round-by-round wrap-up and exclusive post-fight analysis. And Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, join in a chat session with our very own Gil Clancy. That plus breaking news, scores, and highlights at cbs.sportsline.com. The wired world comes to boxing. There's that low blow again. You can see Johnson's head was down. He was just firing a punch. Had no idea where it was going.
That was the worst kind of low blow, Tim, because it lifted up the cuff, came from under the cuff. Those are the kind that really hurt you.
Hopkins only took about a minute and a half and told the referee he was ready to go forward again. We're into the 8th. Hard-fought fight. It's been forced by the champion Hopkins the entire way, and we have yet to give a round to the challenger, Glen Johnson.
Hopkins has shown me just about everything in this fight, Tim. Quick hands, good balance, takes a good punch, and a lot of confidence.
Here's a guy who came from a difficult background in Philadelphia and has turned himself into a world champion in peak condition. Terrific skill.
Tim, again, Hopkins leading with that right hand, exposed himself, left himself wide open.
Hopkins got a little breather in that 7th round, and now he's back to the pace he set in the early rounds. He's scheduled for 12, and Hopkins continues that pace, backing up Johnson. Johnson hiding behind those gloves, which he does effectively.
Got hurt with that left hook to the ribs, Tim.
Yes, he did. You could see him wince. He got off the ropes to get out of there.
Another one, another left hook to the ribs.
But Johnson just not throwing enough punches. Backing up now, he tries to dig to the body. Hopkins keeps him pinned on the ropes.
I have to give Johnson credit, Tim. He's throwing a normal amount of punches for a middleweight. But Hopkins is just unbelievable with the pace he sets.
Little blood from the mouth of Glen Johnson.
That's it, you out there,
Counter right hand scored by the champion Hopkins as Johnson left himself open, lunging in. Johnson simply doesn't have the weapons and has not been able to use what he has to any real effect here against Hopkins so far.
Stop punching. Stop punching, don't hit him. That's good. Now go. He goes in. Let him go. Whoa. Stop punching. Stop punching. Break. Let's go wrestle, man. Let's go wrestle.
8th round scheduled for 12, IBF middleweight championship at stake.
And Tim Johnson now is starting to look weary and battered. Both. Look at that jab of Hopkins, Tim. Snappy jab. There's another one.
Great concentration, too, his eye on the target at all times.
Well, as I had mentioned, I think Hopkins is the best middleweight in the world, and he's reproving it to me today.
Good combination by Hopkins.
Right. Pay attention to the bell now. Right. Let's go.
Boxing here on the CBS Sports Show from the Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California. Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy watching this IBF middleweight battle. And the champion, Bernard Hopkins, an impressive display through weight. We've given him every round against a very game and well-conditioned challenger, Glen Johnson from Miami. Champion in gold. If you join us along the way.
Well, Johnson said before how he was going to win. I have to hit him more than he hits me. But that hasn't been the case. Not in any round.
Hopkins has just not let him do it. He has been forcing right from the outset. Throwing every punch in the book and throwing them with effect. Two superbly conditioned athletes.
Both of you step out. Just step out. Don't punch. Right. Now go.
Hopkins again backing up Johnson, and Johnson goes into that peekaboo defense, and he does pick off a lot of punches, but meanwhile he's not throwing enough back.
Picking off a lot with his body and his head too, though, Tim.
Yes, that's true, but not as many with his head. And there's that uppercut finding its way between the gloves of Johnson, and Hopkins drives him back. What shape Johnson is in. He keeps his balance, good legs under him.
And Tim, he's still firing. Not often, but he's firing. He's tired now, though, Johnson, as we had mentioned. He looks battered and weary.
Gotta show me something, Glenn. Gotta show me something.
Hopkins had the one breather in the 7th round. Kind of stood flat-footed a bit. Got a little bit of a rest, and it was in the same round that he took the low blow from Johnson, the unintentional low blow.
Then the referee had better start looking at Johnson now. Sometimes it doesn't pay to be too game in a fight.
Gotta show me something, son.
Under a minute to go in the 9th. Johnson throwing the right hand over the top just to the shoulder, but he's definitely weary now. He actually rested his head on Hopkins' shoulder.
And bleeding from the mouth. I'm surprised that's the only place he's bleeding from, with all the punches he's taking.
Hopkins' relentless attack.
Tim, these are murderous punches that Hopkins is throwing. And there you see Johnson trying to fire back. I'd take a look at him if I was his corner man. between rounds, and I might stop this in the corner. Just being completely battered now.
All right, stop punching. Don't throw his shoulders. Let it go.
Well, and he's not known to be a one-punch knockout artist, even though he's got 22 KOs in 32 fights. But they'd like to give him that puncher's champ. It is a world championship fight, but he's shown nothing to indicate he can come up with that. Looking into the corner of the challenger, Glen Johnson. Both the doctor and the referee came to the Johnson corner. The doctor checked him out. The referee told him that unless he shows some offense here in round number 10, I'm going to stop it. They obviously are concerned about him getting hurt. This is a world championship fight. They want to be fair and give him a chance, but they don't want him to be hurt.
Well, I agree with them 100%, Tim. As we had mentioned, he was really taking a battering at the end of the last round. And I just don't think that he has the ammunition to stop going on Hopkins now.
Johnson acknowledged that he had to show some more offense here in the 10th in order to stay in the fight. Let's see if he's capable of doing it or whether Hopkins allows it.
Well, that's going to allow him to open himself up. He's going to get nailed a lot more now, Tim, trying to show some offense. This may very well be the swan song in this fight. Hopkins is just enjoying himself in there now, doing anything he wants to do. Accurate hands, quick hands, right hand leads, just about anything that you've ever seen a fighter do, Hopkins is doing in this fight. Look at that feint. He feinted the right hand. His balance is so good, Tim. That's why he can do these things. Good footwork.
Johnson, for his part, is trying here in the 10th to throw some more punches, but he's having difficulty finding Hopkins now.
Tim, he's taking a battering now, Tim.
Hopkins pouring it on again and again. Johnson in just a cover-up mode. Referee Pat Russell moves in to break them, and you know he'll be taking a close look at, and he does.
Well, he is. Pat Russell's done a wonderful job in this fight, Tim. He's been on top of every situation.
Game display by Glen Jackson, warned at the beginning of this round that if he didn't have some offense, they wouldn't let him go any farther. He was willing to come out and try. Johnson headed to his first defeat, but it's in a championship fight against the best middleweight in the world.
And Hopkins, Tim, looks like he could fight 20 rounds.
He does. And there's a body shot that hurt Johnson and moved him away.
Another one.
All right, let him go. Let him go.
Again, Johnson just does not have any tools to keep Hopkins off him any longer in this fight. They should stop this fight so he can live to fight another day. He's holding, grabbing.
Let him go, Glenn. Let those hands go. You're holding him, Glenn. Let the hands go. Let the hands go. Let him go. I got it. Let that hand go.
30 seconds remain in round number 10. Scheduled for 12 in this title fight. Legs look a little more wobbly with each passing second.
Legs are rubbery right now. This is the danger zone in the fight. Taking a battering for an entire fight. That's why they had better keep a close eye on Johnson.
Winging a couple of right hands, still trying. And missing badly with the left. Terrific effort from Johnson, but to no effect. We've got a shutout for the champion Hopkins through 10 rounds, and we'll see now whether or not the doctor is also coming in again up the stairway to our right to take, that's one of the inspectors, pardon me, the California State Inspector. We'll see whether the corner of Johnson allows him to come out.
Let it go. You win it in this round. You understand? Oh, I'm stopping this fight. This is it.
Now this trainer Pat Burns saying, you know, you got to let go in this round.
All right. We got him. We're watching it.
And they brought the doctor in again, and apparently they're going to allow it to continue.
Let him go, Glenn. You got it.
One of three doctors at ringside coming in to
You
check.
can relax, Glenn. Take a deep breath.
Pat Burns again saying he'd stop it if Burns didn't get anything going, but that was kind of the thinking for round number 10. Instead, he's going to come out for the 11th. What do you think, Gil?
If I was in the corner, Tim, he's being completely outclassed now. Doesn't seem to have enough strength or a big enough punch to really do anything to stop the Hopkins Express right now. Look at Hopkins. He's dancing like it's the first round. That would scare me right there.
Hopkins already on his feet. The bell hasn't sounded yet, so if Johnson stays on the stool now, he's up.
Look at the 11th, and Hopkins just more or less looked at him and said, "This is it for you, brother."
Hopkins working to the body here in the opening seconds of the 11th.
Tim, I think we're seeing a new style in boxing business. As you mentioned, it was a well-kept secret before, but Hopkins is showing an awful lot today. But who can he fight in the middleweights?
Well, he wants to unify the crowns. That's the ambition of most of the champions, there being so many in this goofy state of professional boxing. And he'd like to be an undisputed champion, but it's so rare that the other champions want to face each other. At least their promoters usually don't.
Well, I think the other three champions are all controlled by Don King. And I think if he's watching Hopkins today, I think it's going to be very doubtful if King would let any of his champions fight Bernard Hopkins.
Hopkins banging to the body in the early going here in the 11th.
As we had mentioned before in the opening, Tim, I thought that Hopkins was the best middleweight in the world today. He really has reaffirmed what I've thought of him. I just don't think any of the other middleweight champions would even have a chance against him.
Johnson still trying just to stay in this fight, wings the occasional punch, but Hopkins picks up the pace, and then Russell says, "That's enough." The referee steps in to stop it here in the 11th. And Bernard Hopkins against a game challenger, but a completely outclassed one. And there's probably not another middleweight in professional boxing who would not be outclassed by Bernard Hopkins. A sensational performance against an undefeated, very fit challenger, Glen Johnson. Bernard Hopkins saying he wished there were still 15 rounds in boxing because he looks like, as you said, he could go 20. We'll be back in a moment.
There will never be another like it.
Back live in India. Let's get the results from Thomas Treiber.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the official time. 1 minute, 23 seconds of round number 11. Referee in charge, Pat Russell, steps in and calls a halt to the bout with your winner by technical knockout and still IBF middleweight champion of the world, Bernard, middleweight king executioner, Hopkins.
Okay, Bernard, tremendous, very impressive performance against a very game guy. You completely outclassed him. He was in some kind of shape, but nonetheless, we decided that unless anybody else has a different opinion, you're the best middleweight in the world.
I believe so, and I believe the critics and the naysayers and the people that support me will have to bear witness to that. Hey, listen, Glen Johnson was a tough guy. You see so many Mitch-Mac championship fights, it's so ridiculous. He comes in shape. If I'd have lacked up 1 minute in my training and in my discipline, he would be champion here today. I like to say, Dad, I'm coming home. As everybody knows on CBS, he's not doing too bad with liver cancer. And I wish you would say, Dad, I love you. Me and Mommy and everybody be home. I just want to unify the title. I mean, CBS, this is their last fight here this Sunday on the series. I wish y'all could invite me back. I wish this was the beginning. But I like to put on the show.
If you have a chance to start unifying the title, which champion do you want next?
Both of them at the same time and the same night.
All right, well, congratulations to you. A great performance by Bernard Hopkins, the IBF middleweight champion of the world.
Dan Goosen,
We'll be back here in Indio in just a moment.
The best promotion in the world. We the
Bernard Hopkins at the conclusion of the fight against the game challenger, Glen Johnson, but completely outclassed as Bernard Hopkins dominated right from the opening bell. Couldn't put Johnson away until the 11th when referee Pat Russell stepped in and said, that's enough. This game challenger did all he could do, and it wasn't enough for a great champion. Bernard Hopkins, the IBF middleweight champion of the world, and his ambition, of course, to unify all of those middleweight titles, and let's hope boxing fans get a chance to see him start that pursuit. And we want to remind you that tonight on CBS, it's 60 Minutes, followed by
recently featured in USA Today, and he is really a fan favorite. People really like to watch his fights, especially since they're usually over in the first or second round.
Well, he has the charisma, no question about that. He says he wants to give the people a show, and he usually does.
Weighed in at 341 pounds, and right now it doesn't look like Jason Farley wants to come too close to Butterbean.
So far, Jason Farley is the only one throwing any punches, Gus. Butterbean is stalking, but he still hasn't thrown a real significant punch.
Butterbean missing with the left hand. His corner suggesting he used the left jab. And right now, neither fighter able to find their rhythm here in the first round.
The bad boy is trying to jab and get out of the way at the same time, which is something that's impossible.
Third man in the ring, Elmo Adolph. He's got some heavyweights to deal with today. But so far, early in this fight, Butterbean not active as usual. He usually comes out and throws a number of punches to begin his fight. A little more patient today.
And Gus, every time Farley jabs, he drops his right hand. You can see it. And if he jabs twice, it goes down a little further, which makes him subject to a solid left hook if Butterbean never gets it off. Again, Butterbean is stalking, but not moving his hand.
There he is, misses the uppercut. 10 seconds to go, round number one.
All right, Greg, let's get out of there. Quit holding.
Not a lot of action here in the first round.
When sports cream, when legs are sore, when backs ache, when muscles hurt. Wise Sports Cream, rubbing it in brings fast pain relief. No medicine-y smell. Wise Sports Cream, because it works.
Want to make your car look new? Armor All Protected. The dash, the tires, the trim. It's new car juice. It doesn't just shine, it protects. So your car doesn't just look new, it keeps looking new. Armor All.
A message about heartburn from the American College of Gastroenterology.
If you have heartburn more than twice a week, it may not be simple heartburn. You may have a more serious condition called reflux disease or GERD. My advice? If you have frequent heartburn or still have symptoms on your over-the-counter or prescription medicine, see your doctor or gastrointestinal specialist. They can help you live pain-free.
To learn more about heartburn and GERD, call 1-800-HRT-BURN.
Nobody won the first round, right?
Nice.
So round number two, scheduled for 4. Butterbean in the red, white, and blue trunks, and Jason Farley, 4-0-1 with 3 knockouts. In the black and white trunks, out of Toledo, Ohio.
Quit holding the neck. Quit
First
holding.
round, nobody really clearly dominated. Butterbean known for throwing a lot of punches early.
Good right hand by Farley. Reach Butterbean. Butterbean smiling at him. Aha. Now it's my time. Again, another right hand by Farley. Let me see if Butterbean now starts to open up.
Farley keeping that right hand, as you mentioned, Gil, very low.
And every time he jabs, it gets lower.
There's Butterbean, forward the uppercut, trying to rip it up again. Left hook to the body. And Farley backs away. A little better action here at the beginning of the second round.
Farley is really using that left jab now. But again, when he paused with it, that's when he gets in trouble.